Hey guys, today we're going to be focusing on how to find slope and y-intercept from a graph. And I know we started it yesterday, but we're just going to keep on doing it. So the two things that they are going to ask us to identify will be slope, which we know is the comparison of change in y to the change in x, and our b, which is our y-intercept. So I feel more confident finding the y-intercept first because I know that that is where it just crosses my y-axis. So I can go find it right here, and I know that that is where b is, and it is equal to a positive 1. So b is equal to a positive 1, and now I just need to find my slope. So I've already identified my y-intercept point, and I see that they gave me another point right here. So what I can do is either create a table and find my slope by using my x and y values. So I have my 0, 1, and then I have my 0.4 and 8. So I can use my table to find that change in y over change in x, or I can create a right triangle and find the change in y over here and the change in x at the top. So I'm going to start by looking at my table. My change in y, my y goes from 1 to 8. That is an increase of 7. So that is the same with that increase of 7 with the right triangle that I created. Well, as y increased by 7, x increased by 4, which this also matches the change in direction going to the right on the right triangle that I created. So my change in y at each time was an increase of 7, as my x increased by 4. So I can leave my slope as the fraction of 7/4, or I can convert it to a decimal of 1.75. So this gives me my slope and then my y-intercept given the graph. So we're going to look at one more. And now I notice my line is going down, which tells me my slope will be negative. So I'll need to make sure a negative is included in my answer. But I want to find the slope, and I want to find the y-intercept. Keeping in mind that slope is that change in y compared to the change in x. And b is where it crosses my y-axis, which they have already pointed out for me. So my y-intercept is 5, because that is where it crosses my y-axis. And now I just need to find my slope, or my rate of change. They've identified 2 different points for me on the graph, so those will be the points that I'm going to use to create a table for my x and y coordinates. The first one being 8, -2, and then 0, 5. I'm also going to make sure to draw my right triangle going directly up or vertical, and then directly to the left, which is that horizontal change. So for slope, I'm finding that change in y, which if I look at the table, went from a -2 to 5, so I increased by 7. And that directly correlates to the change in y over here, which was an increase of 7. And as y increased by 7, x decreased. So x went down by 8, which matches the change in x because I'm going from 8 right here all the way to 0. So I am decreasing by 8. So when I put it in that ratio form, my change in y is that increase of 7 as x decreases by 8. And for slope, I can just leave it in that ratio form. So my slope is a -7/8, while my y-intercept was a +5. All right, guys, that's all for today.